we're stuck on this hope situation. And I'm all about execution and trying to get things moving. So I'm going to suggest 2 courses of action. And one is simple to a fault, but I think it really will work. If you have 15,000 bushel of corn that you have to move, I would break that into 5 pieces of 3,000 bushels, and I would sell that every Tuesday afternoon over the next 5 weeks. Is there something special about Tuesday? No. And can I do a better job of projecting, something than that? But all I know is we're just 2.5 weeks from a major report. I would have some of that corn sold in front of it. I would sell some of that behind it. I think that for folks that are just literally frozen, that's one way to get the juices flowing. And then if you get an opportunity, another run-up in the new crop near the recent highs, take advantage of it. Now for others, and I would say that these are folks that have had some experience dealing with option features, or those that feel they need to, and I'm really hoping that you will get there, I would take a different route. And again, let's assume, just to keep my math easy, let's use 30,000 bushels in this case, and I would break that into 3 pieces of 10,000 each, with the first task in any of these cases is going out and finding the best basis value you can and try to move some of this physical corn when others won't. But the real risk in all of this is the wall of corn that we may face in the summer, that you get hit twice, that you're disappointed not only in the board price, but the physical movement keeps the basis cheap as well. This is really going to be a problem in the Western Belt, less so here. But I would be assessing that right now. And given that, then I would look at, I would want you to do 3 things, okay? The first 10 you just sell. You pick a spot, April, May, whatever, and just sell it. The second 10, and this is again, maybe new to you, but I think something you should explore as a way to learn. I would write a basis contract at the best, I said basis, Frank, at the best location you can find, and then put a minimum, maximum averaging contract over that old crop basis. It will help prepare you for when your new crop one when we'll be promoting that. So for example, you could say, I want no worse than a 370 July futures financed with a 410 July against this basis contract. That's the second thing I would suggest. And the third, in the way of practicality, and this is more the high flyer, would be to sell the cash bushels and attach only an upside call feature. And I would suggest that you go out to the September. So September corn is trading 375, 380. Go out and buy like a 390 upside. But I mentioned 10,000 bushels. I would only buy that option on one, 5,000 bushels in 10. So you're not investing. So Bill, instead of spending 24 cents, you're effectively spending 12. What we're really getting at are tools, methods to get you off square one. Even if you don't execute these things, if I get you to think about stuff and develop your old plan, that's an accomplishment. Now there's another reason why I'm pushing this, and this is a concern. We talked a little bit of this over lunch, and mentioned earlier, I'm very, very concerned about the overall commodity space for whatever reason in this short period. This break, crude oil's down hard again today. Okay, we're down $47 a barrel, and some of these big boys are barfing it up here, and just getting out of it, and that tends to pressure our whole situation. So if we're in that kind of environment where they don't like copper and they don't like crude, then it's that much harder for the corn market to push. So that is just one other reason that I'm trying to get you folks in a situation where you can be at least motivated to develop a plan. This is serious stuff. If you can get the old crop cleaned up and you've got some new crop beans on, then I think we're going to be okay. Let's go back and revisit beans. We've had a really rough day in beans today from a chart perspective. They're breaking down here. And in relationship to the other commodities, it's too late for the trade to adjust the crop insurance prices, right? It's too late. So we've already set into motion a lot of things. It's going to be hard to change farmers' planting ideas unless or until we get too wet. So I would reinforce one other thing I mentioned earlier. If you are switching 200, 300, 400 acres over, you have to price all of them now. Now, you can't afford to wait any longer. Now, will beans rally from here? I don't know, they might, but the stuff that you're switching based on these last few weeks and months economics, you have to get that stuff done. And I know I'm going to sound like I'm digging in my heels. I caution you on that. I wouldn't sell wheat here. I just think that there's too many things up in the air. The weather guys, I got a noon update. We're concerned about what we may see in Kentucky and southern Ohio overnight. There's just lots of reasons that I would leave that alone, even though that may turn into a bit of an investment later. The other advantage that you have is with the mills in Michigan, with the big mill in Toledo, you should have a reasonably good wheat basis. The other thing you have to monitor as you move forward, is to think about your new crop storage plans. And as we get to the bean number, the acreage number on March 31st, in addition, we get stocks numbers on farm, off farm, so we can start to see about regionally who will have space and who will not. And that may dictate. For example, we basically haven't built much in the way of soybean space for some time. We built a lot of corn space for the growth in ethanol. There may be a decision at some point in time, do I take a 50,000 bushel bean bin and fill it with, a corn bin I should say, and fill it with 35,000 beans and have what we call broken space. There may be situations like that develop. My fear would be that maybe the new crop bean basis in Toledo, which is 30-some under, could drift to 50 under. It got to 42 under last year with 16 boats. But what if they have 4 boats this year? And Bill, what would you consider new crop bean basis up here today? 60 under, something like that? Well, okay, so that much cheaper. So you're already 80, 90 cents under. Okay. As hard as that is to swallow, if you have no place else to put them, my inclination would be to sell the flat price, as long as you've got profitability. I mean, most folks do even at those numbers. Okay. Crude oil is a concern. Increase in the cost of money. We're going to find out from Ms. Yellen and her crew here shortly. Those are all things around the edges, but I've always been one of these, the 3%, 5% is a big number, and if we keep incrementally raising the cost of money, that just is one more challenge for us to face. Okay. I don't want to take Steve's time because he's got an awfully important presentation that you have to listen to closely. And you see and hear enough of my kind of noise on a day-to-day basis. But are there any other questions or comments that I can help you with here? We've got about 5 more minutes. Governor Ricky, what do you got?
Yeah, a couple of them, Mike. How come I guess can't sit tight like I have been, waiting for the $4 corn at the ethanol plant, and let things go at that, and then ride the boat down if you don't get that? And then my second question is...
I want to make sure I understand the first one. So go back to me a little slowly.
Okay, I'm sitting here, I got an open order, ethanol plant, $4 corn. Whenever she hits there, you sell.
Old crop cash.
Old crop cash.
Okay.
Rather than, because I jumped into something mid-max with your beans, and she rode me up to $10, and I ain't got $10.
Okay.
Because I wrote the mid-max to 920 to 950.
Let's go back and look. There's 2 different questions there. But the first one is, you'd like $4 for your cash corn, and at times Albion's been paying overs, right? So you got close, but not close enough. I was okay. Well, even at Riga, that you get to those values. I think that the cash basis, the thing about an ethanol plant today, and there's quality concerns depending what part of the Eastern Belt you're in, that I think that they've got backstops like rail values. We're starting to see some corn that's moved out of Illinois via rail. We have to remember our Canadian farmers can move stuff across the border. So I think $4 cash is an issue. So my tendency would be to lower some orders. Not that I would necessarily change one, but I probably got other corn, Ricky, and I'd start to move it down. And every time I go along the calendar, I got to make some more adjustments. What we're doing is squeezing the amount of time that we've got to deal with this, and we have to adjust. And I'm really nervous about the March 31st report. So if I had 10,000 bushels at a $4 order, I'd cancel 5, leave 5 in, and I'd sell 5, just to spread my risk. But the question that Ricky's really getting at is the new crop beans from last year, okay? When beans were $8.89 last year at about this time, This is before the South American rally. The South American crop fell apart in the last 20% of the growing season. And people had got caught with either flat price contracts, any tool that you might have used. I'm not a real fan of what they call managed products. That's where you give it to someone else to sell. There's a major company, I'm not going to mention, but they're as big as can be. They've got their 17 crop that people offered them, so that's forward hedge for this coming year at 890. So Rick, that's all a function of where prices were a year ago and what you asked that company to do and so forth. I would argue that the min-max actually worked better because at the date you were doing it, you had a choice. I can either sell $9 futures and maybe Toledo was 20 under. So let's just say 880 cash was an alternative, or I can do a min-max. Now the reason I know this is because I had folks that did it. I did a lot, and my guys did a lot of 920, 980s. They ended up pricing at 966 and a half. And if you go back to the choice that they had the day the contract was made, they were 66 and a half cents better off doing min-max than doing flat price, which was my argument. Now, the other thing is, and I know this about Rick, Rick's a pretty good farmer, that when beans got up to $10, we had more beans to sell. We were fortunate that we had an awfully big crop, and farmers kept on selling, and we did really, really well. But the beauty of it is we were not dragging a lot of cheap, flat-priced 880 contracts, and we didn't overcommit with a managed product that's got some prices cheap for this year. So I would still defend that the min-max last year did what it was designed to do, was give me some level of upside. And Rick, you make the choice when you set the boundaries. When you say 920, 980, which I did with my guys in pretty good volume, that we were willing to, at that date with what we knew, offer some beans within that range. If that range won't work for you, then you got to get to where it needs to be. But with all the fundamentals that we knew last year, I will defend a 920, 980 min-max. And I will defend a $10, 1060 today with what we know, even though beans could trade $12. They could trade $12. So it's a matter of knowing when you did it, what your alternatives were. So Rick, to answer the question, take that 10,000 bushel offer, cut it in half, sell the half, leave the other half in place, and continue to use min-max averages over time. I think they'll still work for you. Okay?
And my other question, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I sit here and wait for the guys from the Dow stock market. They can't keep on this record pace. They're going to sell off and come and buy grain, ain't they? Where they can make money again.
Let me say this. That today's algo, here's a good example. On a day when we get a jobs report, the bond markets are very, very dramatic. Okay, biggest volume day, it's the first Friday of the month, and it's always the biggest volume day. I got a good friend of mine in Connecticut, and we had dinner last summer, and he said, Mike, I've been watching this for 8 months, and at 8:30 Eastern, when that comes out, that report comes out, 86% of the volume is traded in the first 1.5 seconds. Okay, so how are we going to compete with a computer? How are we going to predict what these algos are going to do? I can't compete with that, don't want to even try. What I want to do is, Dennis, get my cost of production, set some targets, and here, I'm a big Mark Twain fan. The first one I would say is history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme, which is why I use those charts. The other one, he says, there's two kinds of people that shouldn't speculate. Those that can't afford to and those that can afford. You know, don't get caught up in that. You know, we got to run this. I mean, anybody here that's a little bit older, that's had some fortune, put some money in the pocket, wants to take risk. Everything in my body tells me today to minimize risk with what's going on. How do we feel about North Korea today? Anybody want to tell me what's going to happen there? Okay. How about Syria? Okay. What's the French election going to be like? Boy, we sure predicted Brexit and Donald Trump victory, didn't we? Okay. So I don't want to get caught with any of that stuff, Ricky. That's too hard. I know what I can raise corn for. I know what I can raise wheat and beans for. And I'm just going to try to live through this until I can see better when maybe they do get more interested. That day will come, Ricky. But what if it's 18 months down the road, not eight weeks? Okay? We have one more here, and then we better wrap it up. Please.
We're all doom and gloom and everything, but over the last...
Oh, I'm not doom and gloom. You haven't heard doom and gloom. Doom and gloom was 2 years ago. I'm real upbeat.
Over the last 15, 20 years, isn't isn't there always a high in the market, May, June, July, you get flood, drought, frost?
There's a season, yeah, the question is about, I would say a seasonal question. And that's why these seasonal averages tend to be designed kind of March 1 through July, because if it happens, but it doesn't always. There are some years that we see spectacular rallies in the fall because it's a situation where the harvest is incredibly disappointing. And I think with global production now, we're going to be much, in fact, this is something I think will be a lot more, I think today, if we have a problem with the Indian monsoon and Australia and palm oil production, markets are going to rally sharply even if we have good U.S. yields. So we have to monitor all of those things. I really want to go back to the point I've been trying to make about being disciplined, being professional. Don't get caught trying to, if you try to hit the Grand Slam home run, you're going to strike out too much. You know, Miguel Cabrera hits a lot of doubles too. You know, hit a big home run in the ninth inning last night, but you know, he hits a lot of doubles. There's nothing wrong with being a 350 percentage hitter and hitting a whole bunch of doubles and triples. You know, Steve's from Minnesota. How about Rod Carew? What a great hitter. A lot of guys like that made a great living. Why do I have to try to hit 60 home runs in a season and strike out 200 times? This is not an environment to try to strike out. And folks, I don't have an axe to grind here. Okay, this is 40 years, some of which you get run over. Okay, the shame is not to learn from those lessons. So that's really why I'm preaching so much today. I believe in this stuff.